สงสัยน้ำมันหมดครับฟรีวีซ่าครับผมน้ำมันหมดครับยกรถขยับ
So you just watched that video of tourists literally tilting their motorcycle to get the last drops of gas. And here comes a Thai local commenting about free visas, basically saying this is what happens when you let anyone in without paying. And honestly, this type of content is blowing up everywhere. You scroll through Thai social media these days, and it's full of locals throwing shade at the free visa policy, like it's the root of all their problems. There's this growing sentiment among Thais that if visas cost money, suddenly everything would be better. Better tourists, better behavior, better economy. It's become this almost mythical solution in people's minds. But here's the thing, is this actually true? Or are we dealing with some serious wishful thinking? Let me break this down for you because I've been diving deep into the data, and the reality is way more complicated than people think. First, let's talk about what's actually happening right now. Thailand just went all in on this free visa thing. 93 countries can now enter without paying anything and stay for 60 days. That's literally the most generous policy in all of Southeast Asia. Compare that to your neighbors like Malaysia or Vietnam, who are way more restrictive, and you start to see why some Thais are getting frustrated. The government's logic was simple. More tourists equals more money. They're targeting 39 million visitors in 2025, who should spend around $97 billion. That's roughly $2,500 per person. Sounds good on paper, right? But then you see videos like that motorcycle fuel situation, and you start questioning if quantity is really better than quality. Now, before we go further, let me tell you about Bhutan, because everyone loves to bring them up in these discussions. Bhutan charges $200 per person per day just to visit, plus a $40 visa fee. Sounds insane, right? But here's the crazy part. It actually works for them. They position themselves as this ultra-premium destination, like the Rolls-Royce of tourism. You want to visit Bhutan? You better come with deep pockets and respect for their culture. The money goes directly into healthcare, education, and environmental protection. Every Bhutanese citizen is basically benefiting from tourism revenue. It's this high-value, low-volume model that sounds perfect in theory. The question is, can Thailand pull off the same thing? Here's where it gets interesting. The data on tourist spending is pretty wild. In places like New York City, international tourists spend about $1,700 per visit, while domestic tourists only spend around $450. That's almost 4 times more. Chinese tourists specifically drop about $3,000 per trip. That's 60% higher than the average international visitor. So, yeah, when you look at those numbers, you start thinking maybe Thailand should be more selective about who they let in. But hold up, there's a massive difference between Bhutan and Thailand that everyone seems to ignore. Bhutan offers something you literally cannot get anywhere else on Earth. It's this mystical Himalayan Buddhist kingdom with untouched culture and landscapes. Thailand? Thailand is competing with like 10 other countries in Southeast Asia for the exact same tourists. Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, they're all fighting for the same market. This is where the research gets really scary for the paid visa crowd. Multiple academic studies show that when you introduce visa requirements, tourism drops by about 20%. That's not a small dip, that's a massive hit. For Thailand, that would mean losing around 8 million tourists. Even if the remaining tourists spend more money, you'd need each person to spend an extra $645 just to break even, and that's assuming no other negative effects. Remember, Thailand's tourism industry is still recovering from COVID. They lost 73% of international arrivals in 2020. The industry is desperate to get back to normal numbers, and here we are talking about potentially cutting visitor numbers by another 20%. That's economic suicide for a country where tourism supports over 10% of all jobs. But let's say Thailand decides to go for it anyway. What actually happens? Well, we've got some real-world examples to look at. China tried implementing stricter visa policies during the 2008 Olympics, thinking it would improve security and tourist quality. Guess what? Research later showed it actually reduced the economic benefits of hosting the Olympics. The restrictions backfired spectacularly. Then you've got the Brexit situation where the UK made visas more complicated, and now they're struggling to attract European tourists. Administrative barriers have real consequences that last for years. Now here's what really bugs me about this whole debate. People act like Thailand doesn't have alternatives. You don't need to slam the door shut on budget tourists to improve tourism quality. There are way smarter approaches that don't involve shooting yourself in the foot. Think about it. Thailand could implement a tiered system. Free visas for short stays like 7 to 14 days for your typical tourists, but paid visas for longer stays targeting people who might be working illegally or overstaying. That way you keep the market accessible while filtering out potential problems. Or how about investing that existing tourism revenue better? Instead of creating barriers, use the money to improve infrastructure, enhance tourist experiences, and market to higher spending demographics. Costa Rica doesn't charge crazy visa fees. They just position themselves as this premium ecotourism destination and naturally attracted quality-conscious travelers. The thing that kills me is Thailand is already making changes that could address these concerns without the nuclear option of paid visas. They're cutting visa-free stays from 60 to 30 days to reduce abuse. They're implementing this electronic travel authorization system to screen visitors better. They're bringing back financial proof requirements for tourist visas. These are smart, targeted approaches that don't blow up the entire tourism model. But here's what I think is really driving this paid visa obsession. It's not actually about economics, it's about perception and control. When you see content like that motorcycle fuel video, it triggers this emotional response. People think, if we just charge money, we wouldn't get these desperate tourists. But that's not necessarily true. Budget travelers aren't automatically bad travelers. Some of the most respectful, culturally curious tourists I've met have been backpackers on tight budgets. And some of the worst tourist behavior I've seen has come from wealthy tourists who think money gives them the right to treat locals poorly. Plus, let's be real about the regional competition. While Thailand is debating charging for visas, Malaysia is actively trying to steal their tourists with easier entry requirements. Vietnam is expanding visa-free policies. The Philippines just introduced 14-day visa-free entry for Indian tourists. If Thailand puts up barriers while everyone else is tearing them down, guess where those 8 million lost tourists are going to go? The math just doesn't add up in Thailand's favor. Unlike Bhutan, which has zero regional competition for their specific tourism product, Thailand is in the most competitive tourism region in the world. Every policy decision has to consider what Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines are doing. Now, I'm not saying Thailand should ignore the legitimate concerns about tourism quality. The over-tourism in places like Maya Bay, the illegal workers exploiting tourist visas, the strain on infrastructure, these are real problems that need solutions. But paid visas are like using a sledgehammer when you need a scalpel. Here's what I think would actually work. Thailand needs to get smart about technology and targeted policies. Use that new ETA system with AI to screen visitors more effectively. Crack down on illegal employment through better enforcement, not broad restrictions. Invest tourism revenue in infrastructure that can handle more visitors while preserving what makes Thailand special. They could also copy some successful models from other places. Iceland doesn't charge crazy visa fees, but they've managed to attract higher spending tourists through smart marketing and infrastructure investment. Singapore maintains relatively open visa policies, while creating premium experiences that naturally attract quality visitors. The other thing people don't talk about is the cultural impact. Tourism isn't just about money. It's about cultural exchange, international relationships, and soft power. When you make it harder for people to visit your country, you're not just losing tourists, you're losing cultural ambassadors and international goodwill. Look, I get why Thais are frustrated. When you see content of tourists behaving badly or struggling financially, it's natural to think, why are we letting these people in for free? But policy decisions can't be driven by viral videos and emotional reactions. They need to be based on data, economic analysis, and long-term strategic thinking. The reality is that Thailand's tourism success is built on accessibility and value. Yes, that sometimes attracts tourists who can barely afford to be there, but it also attracts millions of middle-class families, young professionals, and adventurous travelers who become lifelong fans of the country. Many of today's high-spending repeat visitors started as budget backpackers 10 or 20 years ago. I've personally met families in Sukhothai, elderly couples with their entire extended families, like 8 people total, who have been visiting Thailand for decades since they were young, and now they're passing this tradition down to their children and grandchildren. These aren't one-time visitors anymore. They're generational Thailand lovers who spend serious money and keep coming back year after year. If Thailand implements paid visas and loses 20% of its tourists, that's not just 8 million fewer visitors. That's 8 million fewer people experiencing Thai culture, eating Thai food, meeting Thai people, and potentially becoming lifelong advocates for the country. The ripple effects go way beyond immediate economic impact. So what's my take after diving deep into all this research? Thailand should absolutely work on improving tourism quality, but paid visas are the wrong tool for the job. It's like trying to perform surgery with a chainsaw. You might solve some problems, but you're going to create way bigger ones in the process. The smart money is on targeted improvements, better screening through technology, smarter marketing to attract higher spending tourists, infrastructure investment, and enforcement of existing laws. Thailand can maintain its competitive advantage while gradually improving tourism quality without taking the massive economic gamble that paid visas represent. Because here's the bottom line. Once you lose those tourists to Malaysia, Vietnam, or Indonesia, getting them back is incredibly difficult. Tourism patterns, once established, tend to stick. Thailand has spent decades building its reputation as an accessible, welcoming destination. Throwing that away based on frustration with some bad tourist behavior would be one of the biggest strategic mistakes in modern tourism history. The grass always looks greener on the other side, and right now many Thais are looking at places like Bhutan thinking, that could be us. But Thailand isn't Bhutan, and pretending otherwise could destroy what makes the country special in the first place: its openness, accessibility, and genuine welcome to visitors from around the world. Instead of asking, how do we keep certain tourists out, maybe the better question is, how do we make Thailand so appealing that we naturally attract the tourists we want? That's a much harder challenge, but it's also the one that leads to sustainable, long-term success in an increasingly competitive global tourism market. So what do you think? Should Thailand introduce paid visas to filter out budget tourists? Or would that be shooting themselves in the foot? Have you seen the shift in Thai attitudes toward free visas on social media? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Thailand's tourism dilemma, smash that like button and subscribe to Lost in Thailand for more real talk about what's actually happening in the land of smiles. Trust me, there's way more controversial stuff coming that you won't want to miss.